This is the Nomad Futurist podcast, a podcast about the evolution of technology, society, and transformation. Connect with us, share your thoughts with us at nomadfuturist.com. Let's get this started. Here are Phil and Nabeel. Hello. Welcome to Nomad Futurist. This is your co-host, Nabeel Mahmood from Kona, Hawaii.
This is your co-host, Philip Koblenz from Montclair, New Jersey.
And this is Jeff Uphues from Atlanta, Georgia.
Jeff, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Let's start to get to know you a little bit. Could you, at a very high level, share what you currently do and how did you get into this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead a company called DC BLOX. And DC BLOX, we design, develop, operate, and own a fabric of tier 3 rated data centers in underserved growing markets around the Southeastern United States. We interconnect them together with dark fiber, creating connectivity exchanges in each market that we believe is underserved and really having that network connectivity to make them feel like they're in a larger city. And then we do so in the really dedicated purpose of how we interact in the cities and the markets we go into. And it's all about serving locally and connecting globally on behalf of those communities.
So what would be some of those smaller markets that you referred to? Could you share?
You bet. So we're in the heart of the South down here. So, one of the things we're really benefiting from the growth of a lot of the markets of being here. Not only do we have great weather, great food, great climate for business, great tax incentives, but we also have cities that are really thriving, like Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville and Spartanburg, just a remarkable city. If you've never been to it, Forbes and a lot of the other, publications and other things have said, hey, this is one of the best unkept secrets best kept secrets in the markets of the South. Birmingham, Alabama, another market that a lot of people knew it as an old steel town, is now thriving and growing. And it's a city in area around 1.2 million. I think of Huntsville, Alabama, and Huntsville, Alabama is a market that is really a mini Northern Virginia with all the influence of space. It's where NASA is. It's where missile defense is. It's where huge amount of government deployments are coming in and out, which are really thriving in the markets. And we've got a number of markets that are about to be announced that will have more and more of those of really where we're bringing our services to.
There are a few people that I've ever heard on the podcast where I'm immediately the first word that comes out of your mouth, I'm like, this guy is going to run for national politics one day. There's just no question. And we're in the presence of greatness. This is Jeff's going to be somebody important.
Well, what you have to realize about doing business in the South is if you ever sit in a meeting for an hour with anybody, you better understand how to talk. If you're in Alabama, you better be talking Alabama or Auburn football, the weather and everything else around it. And the last 10 minutes of your hour meeting, you get down to business because people want to know you first. And then they'll say, well, bless your heart. That's a really interesting journey.
Bless your heart, man. I say, bless your heart. You're like, get out of there.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So with the recent, exodus from the major metropolitan cities, especially with COVID, how has that impacted your business?
Great question. So, I'd rather be lucky than good in times. And, we're a little lucky that some of these growth in the markets have been so phenomenal for, when we look at markets, we really try to pick markets that are, 1 million people or more in the greater metropolitan service area. We're seeing huge growth within markets like I mentioned, Greenville and Spartanburg. You kind of put them together. They're two independent cities, but there's 1.4 million people there. They're projecting to be 2 million people in that market over the course of the next 10 years. So when you have growth coming into markets like that, or like Birmingham in a similar way, or Huntsville, or even Atlanta, that growth is really eyeballs that are accessing applications that are all around cloud computing, all around mobile devices, all around how do you integrate from your television screen to your mobile screen to your lap, and how do you integrate cloud apps as well as infrastructure? So it's really beneficial. I mean, more and more people have come down and love the just the type of the climate we're in, the political climate, the tax incentive climate, and just the value in livability of these markets.
Well, it's for Pete's sake, the grits.
Well, he did mention the food earlier.
Yeah, the grits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The food is, you're missing out unless you get down here.
I'm definitely missing out. Let me ask you one question. The type of customers that you're going after at DC BLOX, and this is the last kind of commercial question that I'll ask. Do they tend to be the companies that service those individuals that are moving to those areas? The Netflixes of the world, like the edge market type deployments of the world. They're going to support those as opposed to, the local, small businesses that might need, a small amount of data center infrastructure.
Yeah, well, another wonderful question of where we focus. And as DC BLOX, we really focus in serving locally in those markets. So proximity matters. When you're in those markets, there is a large number of headquartered enterprises, city, county, state government, a lot of university systems and people we deal with, a lot of hospital systems, a lot of banks, everybody who is operating and executing within those markets, they call that home. And they don't want to leave and go to a major city like Atlanta, if you're in the case of Birmingham, or they don't want to leave and go to a major city like Charlotte, if you're into Greenville. It's really all about keeping local because that's where they've chosen to live and chosen to invest. So it first starts with all those enterprises that are within those local markets. It then moves into city, county, state entities they call that home and they want to keep things in their state. And then it starts rolling into the content providers, the carriers, the cloud providers as they continue to extend their reach out on their networks. So it's a little bit all of the above.
It used to be football cities. Now it's college football cities.
And there's nothing that could beat college football.
So Jeff, I think you had me at hello. I think I'm ready to reconsider leaving Hawaii and moving to the South. Let's get to know you a little bit more. What led you to your profession? Was that something that you were passionate about early on in your career, or like us, you just stumbled in?
Well, I had a friend of mine that a long time ago in a far, far away place, had said to me, he said, hey, this communications business, this is something that is really something that is changing how we do business. And you ought to take into consideration of looking at it. So I looked at it and said, hey, I think I can make some money doing this thing. And, lo and behold, I've been in it 30 years now. And, you take that period of time and, you see a lot of different things, so as long as, I didn't get into it to say, oh my God, I'm going to be a data center guy. I got into it saying, I'm going to be in the communications industry. And I love the way that it has impacted business and people and everything we're doing. I had no idea it was going to morph into the way but as long as I remained pretty flexible, spending kind of almost in every cycle or every circle of the business. From you start in fiber, you move into communications, from communications, you move into hosted applications move into data centers that then move into networks. So I've seen it kind of full circle. It's been a fun career so far.
So from marketing and finance major and doing about 20 years, looks like from your LinkedIn profile in VoIP and telephony, what was the transition to designing, building, managing data centers?
Well, I'll say that everything in communications, the communications infrastructure that is out there is all hosted. I've referred to people saying, well, it's unified communications, it's cloud communications. That was the real breakthrough of, what is the real widely accepted hosted application that was out there. It really started early on. In 99, 2000, 2001, people started getting into the hosted voice and hosted application service market. What did they need? They needed a data center. So I had been living in and operating in putting equipment within data centers all along. And so when you start really looking at the cloud and the birth of the cloud really starting in 2008, roughly 2007, 2008, we started seeing more and more people saying, hey, here's cloud computing infrastructures, which is nothing more than an application service provider putting it in a more wholesale data center. I've been in that space and in the data center space a long time, either as a consumer of it, but then now the cloud has 4 walls and it's called a data center. So you can't go very far to escape it. I've always kind of been in it, but taking that next step a little deeper into it with DC BLOX was all about seeing a need of these underserved markets.
Cloud was in the sky and infinitely. So taking it back a little bit, did you always like technology when you grew up? Is technology something you had any interest in, or did you have a different path in mind?
I really didn't drive or run to technology. I think today it's I love what I do. I think the only part that I don't like what I do is when my mother calls me and says, can you help me fix my iPhone or help me fix this? You're the technology guy.
We've talked about that many times on this podcast. No matter how high career, you're always like the tech support for your family. In your bubble, You're the computer guy. It doesn't matter. You could be the CEO of Apple. Doesn't matter. You're the computer guy.
So, I didn't initially run to it from a technology, but I've always embraced it and looked at it. I was fascinated by it. And, you get fascinated by it in a lot of different ways, through some of your mistakes that you make along the way and some of the interesting stories for what it does to, some of the successes. And as long as you keep learning every day, it's really exciting. It's never always the same. There's always going to be change within technology as everything runs through cycles, and it's fun to be a part of it. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but I didn't get into it purposely that said, hey, I want to go be a coder. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. It just keep learning.
What were your goals as a kid growing up? I mean, like everybody talks about being a doctor, a surgeon, an attorney, a real estate broker, whatever the case might be. Firefighter, a cowboy. Yeah, especially in the South. So what was your goal as a kid?
So I've got a family that comes a lot from sports backgrounds, really heavy in the Olympic Games, really heavy in, basketball. So I wanted to be a professional athlete, but realized that number one, I couldn't run that fast. And number two, I couldn't jump that high. So number three, I wasn't as big. I was tall, but I really wasn't, built out. So I realized pretty quickly my days as being a potential professional athlete were going to be limited. So, after that, it was just more of, hey, what are things that you can really do to make a difference in your career, make a difference in your life? So make a difference in others.
Was there one particular sport that you were interested in?
It was both football and basketball. I kind of say, here's one of the things that, makes you real jealous. So I had an opportunity to go play college football, and I didn't, and I chose to go play college basketball. And instead of doing that, if I would have taken the road to go play college basketball, I would have been wearing one of those nice big cheap, championship rings that are out there for the NCAA championship. But now I could say that I've got a ring in the family, is my daughter is working on the creative media team for Georgia football. And so she was able to win the championship this year. We're in Indianapolis. It's really cool to see her now being part of the team and being able to get a national championship ring.
Sounds like a lifetime of things that'll build credibility in those meetings you have in the South. So you couldn't possibly be in a better place for, your lived experience.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll just bring my daughter to me each meeting.
I would also, because she's fine, right? So my daughter will just get anybody to sign anything just to turn around.
Well, that covers the 50 minutes, 10 minutes now for business. So in the current state of affairs, what are some of the biggest challenges and what are some of your strategic focuses?
For us, it's really expanding the business. The data center business is experiencing massive growth at this point. It's us finding and continually expanding the reach of what we're doing. And we do that through really a strategic purpose. That strategic purpose is serving locally and connecting globally on behalf of our customers. And that means that if we find markets and find opportunities with customers and find opportunities in markets where we can make a difference with our calendars and the way that we work and give back in the communities. If there's ways that we can do that with connecting globally for our customers that make a difference in how they are, really operating, then that's what we're going to continue to do. We've got 5 data centers on the ground today. I never put a limit on the number of data centers for what we look at, or I'll call them more markets. I think we can get to a dozen or more and continually expand and make a difference in the communities we serve, in addition to making a difference in creating a purpose that is for our employees to really engage in. And, for us, that's really important. I mean, starting with purpose of how you interact with the markets you use, as well as the markets you go into, as well as your employees, and how they can make a difference is a really good 1-2 combination that's far bigger than just saying, hey, you work for a data center company.
Would everything be in the Southeast, or would you consider expanding beyond just that region?
Well, you never say never, but certainly I think it comes down to focus. And, focus is something that a lot of companies tend to stray. You stray early when you're building a company is like, oh my gosh, you need to get revenue from anything. Oh, well, just let's go do this. So let's go get revenue. But then it also says when you get bigger, and your customers are saying, hey, I really want to bring you here or there. I think, and I learned a long time ago, if you listen to your customers and do what they tell you to do, and you do so with the same quality, you'll end up expanding outside of what really you've started. It just comes down to what is the right time to do that. We haven't had the right time or the right things to expand outside the Southeast. So I think we will at some point. We haven't yet because we are remaining focused.
Well, you have to have an entire R&D department based on finding, all information about those college football teams and those cuisines and all of the local cultures so that you can spend, the majority of those meetings talking about, whatever they want to talk about locally.
Yeah, the first 50 minutes about football and weather. And where'd you go to eat? What's the best restaurant?
I spent all this time at, this restaurant in North Dakota. I thought I should share so you've been doing a lot of obviously construction and staffing of these facilities, particularly during the pandemic. What are some of the challenges that you've seen in terms of, construction? Have you seen, any acute impact associated with, some of the, timeline and supply chain issues and finding, talent in those localized markets that might not have, a significant amount of, telecom or digital infrastructure talent to choose from?
Yeah, great discussion on this part. The supply chain issues, no one is void of being affected by these. We've seen an increase in material that range between, call it 7 to 10% to as high as 30 to 40%. And depending upon what core critical units, the core critical units of the data center are really, what are your building materials? What are your generator costs and what takes place there? What do you do with your uninterrupted power supply, your transformers? Just the core critical things that make a tier 3 rated data center work. So we're not void around like no one else is void of those cost increases.
Just order all that stuff on Amazon and choose Prime delivery. It's fine.
Yeah, you can do that for the guys who are doing cryptocurrency mining. They don't have as much pressure on them for quality of.
So with the FCC recently announcing roughly about $1.2 billion in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund to improve the broadband connectivity, especially in areas that you're currently in, how is that going to impact you?
Well, I think it certainly is going to be, whether you're a middle mile builder on the investment, where you're trying to get more rural broadband out and enable co-ops and other things, which we do day in and day out, as many of our customers are rural cooperatives and other things that find that they want to interconnect to the network we built or interconnect to our data centers. More and more money is going to be pushing to extend that broadband to areas which it hasn't before, or more importantly, increase the size of the pipes that give access to more applications, whether it's going to be 5G to towers or whether it's going to be digital infrastructure to data centers, and then getting out through more EPON networks and other things through hubs. So, regardless, I think that the more broadband is going to drive higher and higher applications, getting into that metaverse, environment of, what is the really Web 3.0 that's going to drive the type of interactive type of communications. And those applications are going to have to live closer to where they're being consumed, which then in turn drives more things with data centers. So, more broadband, higher speed, larger applications, more density, more gaming, more things that come into data centers that need to have closer proximity.
So we will have the internet bubbles.
I don't know about that, but we'll.
I guess we're all living in the internet bubble. Aren't we already living in the bubble?
It's roughly about 40% of the America is. Yeah, the markets that Jeff is serving, they aren't fully in the internet bubble yet.
That's true. They'll get there. Back to the talent question. Have you found because you're in some of these rural markets that you've been able to, retrain existing, maybe displaced workforces to apply them to data centers? Or something you found in terms of, who works within a data center environment that you might not have predicted would be working in a data center environment, particularly in some of these rural markets?
Yeah, we haven't really had a challenge with finding talent. When you build a great culture and you build a great company, you always have people who want to be a part of it. And then if you're investing into your people and training, in ways that are industry standards and ways that they can use that within their careers, it's not really a big challenge for us to find. What we have found is that scarcity of some of the resources in the construction of data centers tends to increase some of the cost, as it just takes a little bit more time. We've built from the ground up, we've built 4 data centers now. We've got number 5 and 6 that from the build side of us putting them up. We've got a remarkable track record that we've been able to do by picking the right type of contractors and by serving locally. Once again, like what I said before, when you're serving locally and using local contractors, it really means something. You just have to have the right cadence and the right mechanism to ensure that those projects stay on time. And we just finished our Greenville facility that we start first shovel of dirt turn roughly around April 4th of 2021. We completed the facility in a pandemic with supply chain issues at the end of October. And by the end of November, we were ready for customers. So when you're doing that in a 27, 28 week time period in a pandemic and managing it, not to mention that we did so in a way that we were only about $100,000 over, I think we've got a really good system approach of how we do this. And finding the right people is really what matters. I mean, we can build any damn building we want in the world, but if you don't have the right people that have care and understanding, the know-how, you're not going to get the end result. So far, we've got that end result, which is working.
Do you find that we've talked about in previous podcasts about the idea that a lot of the underlying infrastructure that goes into a data center build is the same, from standard construction. Yes, there are certain elements of it, but have you found, particularly in these markets, that there's any learning curve with some of the local construction resources that you're utilizing, some of the local contractors that you're utilizing to apply their knowledge to a data center and a tier 3 data center at that?
Well, a little. I mean, we found one of the ways we use this is we picked contractors that, number one, were skilled in critical infrastructure. And those contractors actually have offices in all the markets for which we're building. So, I mean, you can have some consistency in using some of the same GCs, use some of the different subs that are along the way that, you're trusting your GC and you're trusting that we can, pick the right ones. But, the vendors that are, I kind of looked at, we assemble data centers. We don't build them, because we're using parts that, every single one looks the same. It's one of the things around consistency of operation, consistency of design, consistency of assembly, consistency of operation and how you're doing it. It makes it where, down here in the South, we have a lot of Chick-fil-A's. We're kind of stamping out the same Chick-fil-A over and over and over again, and you're going to get the same result in quality and assurances.
We're getting a bunch of Chick-fil-A's up here now also.
Yeah, I still got to try it.
Tastes like chicken.
Yeah, exactly. So Jeff, I want to get to know you a little bit more. You majored in marketing, then you were in sales and marketing for a significant amount of your career. And it sounds like that you were actually in finance as well, and to being now the CEO of DC BLOX. Can you share that journey at a very high level with?
Well, number one, don't be afraid to make mistakes and get your hands dirty. I learned at an early age that nothing good comes without real hard work and dedication into it. So whether you're in a sales portion, whether you're in a marketing portion, whether you're in an operations portion, continue to keep learning, continue to keep listening. And it all comes down to people. I mean, you can be in any business in the world, but if you understand people, you have the ability to navigate upwards, up the chain, as long as you're leaning in and ensuring that, you understand both sides of the story. You got to look at it through the eyes of the employee and the eyes of what's best for the company. And somewhere in the middle really results, how do you get the best, overall work product and get things done? So, I've looked at it. I wanted to master every single area around doing things, from the sales side to then how do you find customers, to the product side, to how do you operate. And really that shift of the operating side and the finance side is, you go from, hey, this is really cool and I'm solving problems for customers, to, hey, this is really cool and this is how you make money. Before, when you're in the sales side or in the marketing side or in some of the product side, you're looking at it saying, hey, I'm focused on trying to make a difference and how do I sell more of my product? But many guys don't understand how you make money at doing that in the full circle. So once you start making that bridge, I made that bridge to more in finance, really tried to understand more about it, understand more from the operating side, then you understand the capital side. And once you understand the capital side, now it's like, okay, now you can entities that create financial leverage by delivering great products and services and only doing a few things, because you realize that if you start taking on more to do something else, then what else are you not doing? Otherwise, it could be really expensive for you through lack of execution or lack of, just focus. So
in your personal and professional life for 30 years, what would you classify as one or two strengths that you have developed?
So I relate a lot of things back through sports. And I will take it back from one of my all-time favorite coaches, John Wood. So the old coach of UCLA, lived to be, right about 100 years old. I got one of his books on my bookshelf back behind me that he signed. And he says, don't rush, but be quick, which really means be patient for some of the results for what you're doing. Trust in the people that you have around you in looking at it, but be quick to take action within the things, because the door won't always, be open all the time. And it may not knock twice. Someone may not knock twice if an opportunity comes up. So, don't rush, but be quick and continually lean into the people and the relationships, and you can build great teamwork. And it doesn't matter what damn business you're in. you can achieve it in almost anything.
I think there's a little hint of like believe in yourself, right? Don't hesitate, and just trust your own, trust your own instincts.
Yeah, it's something that I wrote down. I've got it. If you go to my Twitter feed, you'll see it as the description there, and it's really around a personal statement. And when you lead with character, and you're humble about your what you know, and you want to lean in and learn as much as you can, and learn and continue. It really sets a grounded approach of. You don't know everything. You'll never know everything. There's always going to be somebody smarter than you in the room. There's always going to be somebody who has, a better mousetrap of this or that. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to people. It comes down to, being humble, believing in yourself, learning continuously, and continually just, working on yourself.
Very well said. How do you classify yourself today? I mean, marketing, finance, and now being in the executive role. Do you classify yourself as a finance guy? Do you classify yourself as a technologist, a futurist? Where do you see yourself? Where do you think your core strength or play is?
I'm built to serve customers. For us, it's all around, what gets me out of it, out of the day in and day out. I am a customer focused guy, and it's about solving their problems in more unique ways. And it depends if, it's marketing. It is for us, it's all about achieving that strategic purpose. Serving locally and connecting globally. So can we solve customers from it, or solve problems with it? It depends on what you're trying to solve. You're trying to solve a throughput issue, an marketing issue. You're trying to sell a sales issue. I'm just a guy who learned a lot along the way and learned more from my mistakes than I did from the successes for what I have had. And if you can continue to tell people what those journeys are and just stay grounded along the way, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I give you one of my business cards right now, you'll see it doesn't have a title on it. We don't put titles on our business cards here because they really don't mean anything except for, okay, I want to tell you what I do. I'd rather tell you why I do it rather than what I do, because why is making a difference. What is saying, hey, I'm, puffing up my chest and let me tell you how important I am. I'm no more important than, the guy down the hall. For me, it's just about how do you solve problems for customers.
I started the podcast by saying this, and I'm going to say it one more time. I vote for Jeff, right? I'm just, I wouldn't vote for him.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, you've got my word as well. And I'm seriously reconsidering moving to the South.
Oh my God.
I forgot. I mean, come on. Philip and I we'll show you some shrimp and grits down here that'll change your world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And some fixins. So how do you classify yourself? I mean, are you an early adopter? Do you like to be on the cutting edge, or are you just following the market needs?
Just judged by the camera he's using, I'm going to go with early adopter, but.
So I've learned through trial and error and different things that the cutting edge can also be the bleeding edge. And when you're on the bleeding, that can be costly financially. It can also be very rewarding in doing things. I would say that, for us as a company, we are a really fast follower into the terms of the technology, and we're market makers in what we do. So when we think of data centers, were not new. When we launched this company really in 2016 is when I joined it as a board member and then took over as CEO in 2017. Data centers weren't new. Quality data centers in underserved markets were something that was new. So it was subtle, but yet it's positioned in the right way, really around anchoring into that market and purpose. It's following where the market is going, yet extending out into a market as an early adopter rather than, trying to do something. We're not trying to run our facilities on saying, hey, we're going to be the next all solar, powered data center that can deliver, gigawatts of power into the markets of what we're doing. That would be bleeding edge. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're taking standardized equipment, doing it in unique engineered ways that allow us to get the efficiencies of what we want, both economically, financially, as well as performance. And we're putting them with a repeatable process into it. So, I'd say fast follower into markets with early adoption into those markets.
Now, many tried and true deployment. There's a bunch.
Yeah, exactly.
That may be our new title. You may see that on our website this afternoon.
A nickel every click. Danielle, you heard that. A nickel every click.
Yeah, no nuclear energy plants right next to your data center yet. So with very many science fiction movies present a dark vision of the future, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of humanity?
Wow, that's deep. So there are certain things that I'd say trouble me a little bit more. There's nothing like, I've got two kids. One turned 17 today. The other one's 20. And when you look at them, and I walk into my daughter's room and I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, I'm talking to X person. I'm talking to this person. I go, "You're not talking to them." She goes, "Yes, I am." And she's texting them. And so texting is talking. So what takes place in the next generation where, people are walking around with virtual reality headsets and trying to get into worlds where they haven't been before? At the end of the day, there's nothing that is ever going to be a real in-depth conversation back and forth with people and understanding human dynamics, not artificial worlds, but the dynamics of people and the dynamics of, understanding each other. And, so if I'm worried about humanity in some ways, I think we're driving technology so much that is really around program response around what we are doing to try to live artificially through things. And I think the more we simplify our life by using technology rather than augmenting our life through technology is the only thing that concerns me. You need a healthy dose of both, but I would lean in more towards conversation and understanding relationships in terms of humanity and understanding that everybody comes with a different point of view, not a virtual reality view is the only way.
Which is ironic. There are certain ways to think about it in terms of, that might be at cross purposes with what will to faster data center growth and adoption, but also, just the ruining of civilization.
Yeah, you need a balance, man. You need a balance.
Yeah, balance is critical. This has been amazing, getting your perspective on things and where you're at and things that you're doing. What would you tell the younger generation that has no clue what a data center is or how things work on the back end from a technical perspective and where this industry is headed? I mean, we are the largest, smallest industry is the way I talk about it. What do you think, or what would your advice be to the younger generation to come and bridge this digital divide and the generational gap that it's getting deeper and wider in our space?
Well, get involved early, get involved in whatever role you possibly can. And if you're willing to learn and willing to listen and willing to, to really embrace of how customers are trying to solve problems, you'll have a really long, beneficial and financially rewarding career in this business. You walk around these conferences and you walk around and see the people in the industry. They're a bunch of old guys like me, and it is. I mean, there's going to be a real gap in leaders that need to come up from a lot of different areas. So get involved with some companies where really the leadership teams there are really embracing the development of their people. And with that, man, it'll open up for you anywhere where you want to have a career. We're going to need to have a hell of a lot more data centers. They won't be all the same size, but certainly the industry where the network meets the application is going to require a facility of whatever type, a hut, a small data center at the base of a tower, a data center in a regional market, or going back to a hyperscale data center. There's a lot of room for growth, and get in early and just get with the right team that is really putting customers first, and you'll figure it out.
One of the things you've articulated, of course, is that there's just such a wide breadth of experience you can have or exposure you can have within the data center. You don't have to be the guy that builds the data center or the guy that puts in the computer. I mean, there's construction, there's finance, there's marketing, there's sales. There's all these different roles from super technical to not technical at all, where, you can embrace it and ride the wave.
Yeah, just get involved. Get involved. I learned as a young kid, it's like, look, if your first job, which mine was, is being a apprentice electrician, the electrician guy says, "Hey, Jeff, we're going to bring power to to this new complex what we have." And I'm like, "Okay, well, how do we do that?" And he goes, "Well, it's going to start. Here's a shovel. Here's a pick. Start digging a trench where you're going to bring in the power that's coming off the feed over here. And, we have to get power to the facility. So if you're doing that, dig the best damn trench that you possibly can."
I thought I was an electrician. I didn't know I was going to be. We're all ditch diggers at the end. All right. This has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Great to get to know you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you very much.
This has been great. Nothing lasts forever. Markets will come back, currencies will rebound, businesses will go on, and we'll all move on. That could happen next week, next month, or next year. I'm confident that those who prepare rather than panic will come out of this stronger. Thank you for joining us. This has been brought to you by Nomad Futurist. Check us online at nomadfuturist.com.